I think it's about, doing what scares you, getting out of your comfort zone and pursuing those things. But I also think it's about looking at the what ifs, because I think that's just it. A lot of us are saying, well, I want to do this, but I can't do that because of internal friction or external friction. Internal being, I'm too scared. External would be that, well, I don't have a fast enough computer or whatever we want to externally blame as the reason. And the thing is that, let's say changing your career when you're older, because I talk to a lot of people who are like, oh, well, I always wanted to do visual effects or artwork or whatever, but I can't because I'm 40 years old now and I've got kids and, I guess that ship sailed. And that's just one example of many. But the thing is, whether it's that or quitting your job and moving across the country to pursue a different thing, all of those things you can do, but common sense says that you should think about what's the worst thing that could happen? And it's not to paralyze yourself and convince yourself not to, it's to minimize the damage. So I had someone used to email me all the time and they're like just asking a lot of questions, and one day they call me. I don't know how they got my number, but they called me and say, hey, Alan, I just moved to LA and I quit my job and everything. I moved to LA and no one's hiring me and I'm now homeless. Someone stole my Xbox. That was a thing. And I'm living in my car. And I just remember it was like a Sunday morning. It was like 10 in the morning. And he was saying, what should I do? Should I give up my dreams and go back home? Or should I stick around? And this is, I got angry because, and I told him, I was like, you can't put this on me to make these decisions for you. And I told him exactly what he should have done, which is, well, why didn't you have a job lined up before you got here? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And so it's common sense. Like if you want to go and pursue, it's not like I told him to move across the country or anything, but he just saw it as like, hey, this person seemed to always solve my problems for me. Here's a new problem for you to solve. And the thing is, a year later, he did the exact same thing and had the exact same result and called me up again. And my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, pretty much banned me from responding to his emails because I was just getting so stressed, having to be sucked into all of his problems. But even then, the second time he managed to get my number and call me, it was pretty much like, what should I do? Should I give up? Should I do this? And or should I keep sending my reel and trying to get a job? And this guy is considerably older than me as well. But for me, it was just like, look, what you should focus on is putting food on the table tonight. Like you shouldn't be worrying about your 3D career and everything else. It should be go get a job at Best Buy or wherever. Just go get a job somewhere and get income. And that way you can afford a roof over your head. And you can then start to think about, the next step, which is get a job in 3D or whatever. And he took that literally. He went and got a job at Best Buy. So
he's listening to your advice 100%.
But it's one of those things that, well, A, you can't put all your problems on everyone else to solve. But B, like the best thing you can do is have these big ideas of what you want to do and be willing to do them. But you need to also think of like, what is the worst case scenario? And it's not to convince yourself to walk away. It's not to convince yourself like, okay, yeah, like that's so scary. Maybe I shouldn't do this. It's about saying, okay, the worst case scenario, like out of everything, if I quit my job and I go do this other thing, my head could fall off and I could die, or whatever, like whatever illogical thing that you're going to come up with. Because most of the time it's a gut reaction. Like we're afraid to do something. We don't even put it into words. We just feel it. We're like, oh, I can't do that. Like before I launched my podcast, I was doing it on video, and I remember asking one of my friends who I thought was really charismatic. He's fun, he's outgoing, and I mentioned, "Hey, I've been interviewing a few people on camera, blah blah blah," and like his horrified look on his face. It wasn't like I was filming him. It was just the idea. Me mentioning it to him, he instantly started living this fear of like, "No, I can't do this," and he's freaking out just he would feel it just from the words of, "Hey, would you be interested in being interviewed on camera?" So a lot of the times we don't even put it into words. We just feel it and we push away from it really quick. And a lot of times if you actually go and take the steps of putting it into words, that's when you start to realize how ridiculous it actually sounds. It's like, well, okay, I'm really afraid that if I quit my job, move across the country, let's say, that I'm going to be a failure. People are going to mock me. I'm going to die alone, and like whatever extreme thing. But when you say that out loud as words, it's like, well, that's pretty unrealistic. Now I think about it, that's kind of silly. But what is the most ridiculous? Like, what is the worst thing that could happen to me? It's like, well, maybe I don't get a job. Maybe I go broke because of that. Maybe all these other things. And the thing is that is actually possible. So now that you're actually able to paint the picture of the worst case, that's when you can start saying, well, what can I do to prevent that? Well, okay, if I want to move across the country and take a new job, change career, do all these outlandish things, before I get broke, maybe there's like a set amount of savings that I have that I can say, well, once I get to 10 grand in the bank, that's when I realize that this isn't working out and I can go back to my old job. Before I get to zero and I'm sitting outside in my car with my Xbox stolen or whatever.
Finding Alan's number and calling him.
Exactly. And that's just one of those things that the more that we understand what the worst case is, like the realistic, tangible one is, the more that we can minimize that risk. So when it comes to changing careers, maybe it is that you don't quit your job in Tom Cruise style and flip out and say, I'm leaving, who's coming with me? Maybe what you do is you decide, okay, well, maybe I'll work on a portfolio on weekends. I'll learn during the week, like in the mornings or at night. And then I'll start moonlighting. Or I tell my boss, like, I want to go on vacation. Or if he says no, an unpaid vacation for a month. And you contact the studio that you want to work with and you go and work for them for 2 or 3 weeks. They know the situation that you're trying this out. And that's a chance for you to test the waters and see, like, am I good enough? Do I even want to do this? Maybe I tried. I'm like, I don't actually enjoy this at all. This is boring. I'm not an artist. I'm an operator. So the more that we're able to minimize the risk, the more that we're able to safely do what we're going to do and safely transition to that new career without that worst case scenario being so bad. And also having savings or all these other things, it means that, okay, when I do it, it's not the worst case scenario. I've got something to fall back on. Maybe when I quit my job, I don't do it, that way. I actually do it in a nice way where they say you're always welcome back and say, well, you know what, let me try to follow my dreams for 3 months. If it doesn't work out, I'd like to, give you a call. Is the door still open? That's always an opportunity as well. So that's the main thing most of us don't do is we just go from one extreme to the other, or we convince ourselves never to do it in the first place, thinking that worst case thing or that gut reaction that we have is going to happen. And so we're too afraid. So we think that ship sailed. I'm better off just sticking with what I know.
To be honest, like I think the guy is a little bit on the wrong career path. I think she should be private investigator. I mean, like, this is amazing. Yeah. It's not so easy to find a private number. You have to kind of be a little bit. I'm learning.
I think my phone number, at least, I haven't cut a new reel in a long time, but I'm pretty sure that's probably how we got it. I don't know, but like I do get that. Where at least in the past, I've gotten people call me where I answer the phone and they say, "Is this Alan McKay?" And I'll be like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Okay, cool, bye," and hang up. And then I have to think about like what just happened. So it happens from time to time.
Just because we talk about chaos and bringing a little bit of the limitations out of you doesn't mean you have to be crazy. You don't have to be stupid. You don't have to be, but it has to be push you in a way. So I think what you were basically saying is find a limitation that you can work with. Because like you basically, for you, it was okay to stop school, not going because you were like, I don't care about this. This is not important for me. It is a risk. I'm pretty sure there was some fear in you. I'm pretty sure it was not like 100% like I don't care at all, because you grow up with this and then suddenly leaving something comfort is always a little bit of stressful. But for you, it was not much as big as of a deal as it was for me, for example. From culture, I'm a German. I was talking with Sabine. For us, education, it is, if you don't do education, you're really on the really crazy side.
He did ask if I would stay at the company, but I guess that's maybe just me, but I was like, nope, education first has to be finished.
You can finish education and then you can do whatever. That's already crazy, but not finishing education, it's definitely on the really crazy side for us, like culturally or so. But what I believe, like you just said, and I feel the same way, is find the elements that you can work with. Like find the kind of chaos that you can work with. For example, I can work with traveling. I can work in a different place. Tomorrow I can decide I'm living in Wellington. Next day I can decide I'm living in Tokyo. A lot of people telling me like, oh, Alex, like, I could never do that. Yeah, because for you, that is your extreme, your fear, where you like feel on the edge, where you will be, like stressed just by doing it, But for me, it is stress in a way. There is something in me, but I'm more afraid of not having enough money. So I would be more afraid of moving and not sure, like American style a little bit, not sure where my next paycheck is coming next month, because that's something I'm not used to. As a German, I felt always safe. I've never had, once in my life, I had minus on my bank account. And that was super stressful for me. But this is something where I would be afraid of, if I would not sure like next month. But as you said, this is something where I would like have a plan. Because, for example, I can work with tomorrow, like traveling to the US, don't know where I'm staying, and then improvising on the spot, because that's not a fear of mine. But tomorrow traveling to the US and I'm not knowing where I have my next paycheck next week would be something I would be extremely stressed to a degree of non-acting. Basically to a degree of like, I don't know what to do. I'm basically not even thinking about Target or McDonald's or KFC or something so big, but more like I need to find ILM or Pixar who hiring me, else I don't know what's going on. And I think that's what it is about, is like find your points of which can you handle and which not, and which you can handle, put them a little bit on the test, and if there are elements that you have hard time with, make sure you come at least prepared on that way. Save money, have options, have a safety net for like friends there or something like that. But I think that is the balance that you have to do, is kind of push yourself, but make sure that your really fearful elements are kind of like, you remember this pyramid of needs, like at the bottom is always your body, like, health and stuff. And then basically like that. And some people are not as stressful with that, some people like, can run in gang areas and they're like, I don't care. You are listening to the 21 Artist Show, a podcast that inspires creatives to make meaningful content to pursue their passions. I'm talking with creators, artists, and engineers about their careers, lessons they have learned, and how to make an impact. I'm your host, Alexander Richter. I'm a technical director and coach in visual effects, animation, and games. For more content, go to 21artistshow.com. Enjoy the show.